everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name's Amanda, and today we're going to be canning up some cucumbers and making pickles. We are going to be making the Kosher Dill Pickles. I have 43 cucumbers to can up, and so let's go ahead and get started. So my daughter washed up the cucumbers for me. It was a huge help, and she removed all the pricklies from it, which is definitely what you want to do. And we're going to go ahead by starting cutting them up first. And my jars are actually in the dishwasher right now, getting cleaned and sterilized. So we're going to go ahead and cut these up. You're going to want to remove the ends like that. And then I don't have a mandolin, so I am just cutting mine by hand. And you want it to be about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thickness. You can make them as thick as you'd like, and then put them in the bowl.
For better quality pickles, some recommend to can them up within the 24 hours of picking them. But cucumbers can last for up to a week, left at room temperature if you keep them out of direct sunlight. Now, I like to can up my cucumbers when I have a large amount of them, because certain recipes call for so much vinegar and so much water, so I really like to make it worth my while when I go to can. I keep my cucumbers in a basket on my dining room table, not in direct sunlight, and I like to wait until I have about 20 cucumbers, but this time I had a lot more than that, so it was definitely time to do it.
I have all my cucumbers cut up. I have 3 nice size bowls filled with them. Now I'm going to go ahead and start getting the next station set up, which is my jars. They are finishing up in the dishwasher, so I'm going to go ahead and start bringing them out. One more.
I always try to think a cucumber a jar. If I had 43 cucumbers and I actually washed a total of 47 jars to be on the safe side, let's see how many I needed. Some people like to pick their cucumbers when they're small to can them. I like to wait for mine to be a little bit bigger. That way I definitely get a good amount of pickles.
Okay, so my jars are washed up. My cucumbers are cut up. We are going to go ahead and start making the Kosher Dill Pickle brine. And I am using Mrs. Wage's.
Here's what it looks like that I am using
for it. And it is really good. The kids love it. My youngest is getting into stuff in the kitchen. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start this. We are going to be doubling this recipe because I have quite a bit of cucumbers and I have 2 packs of it. So we are going to start off with 14 2/3 cups of water. So 4 cups of water so far, 8 cups of water, 12 cups of water, 14 cups of water, 2/3. So now we have 14 cups and 2/3 cups of water. So 14 2/3 cups of water. Okay, now we are going to need 6 2/3 cups of white distilled vinegar. So let's get that now. All right, 4 cups of distilled white vinegar. All right, now we have 6 cups of distilled white vinegar. Okay, now we have a total of 6 cups and 2/3 cups of distilled white vinegar. So 6 2/3 cups of distilled white vinegar. And again, you want to make sure that your vinegar has 5% acidity. As you can see that there. And this one I got from Costco as a 3-pack, and I think it was like $6 and some change. I don't remember quite how much it was, but I got it before the gardening season really started, and that way I could make sure that I had enough of the stuff that I need for canning. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add these 2 pouches, this is what they look like, into the pot to make our brine mixture. It smells really good. All right, so we are going to, let's see. So you add your vinegar, your water, and then you're adding the dill pickle mix into the pot. And I'm doing 2 of those. Definitely doubling this because we have a lot of cucumbers to use. All right, so I'm going to turn it up to high heat, and we're going to bring it up to a boil. And we want to make sure that the mixture that we just dumped in dissolves. Like it, you don't see any clumps to it because you don't want to see that. Okay, so while this is coming to a boil, we are gonna go ahead and start stuffing the jars with some cucumbers. My daughter wants to help, so we're gonna start doing that. Okay, so all you're gonna do is just take them and then just put them in. But you wanna stack them nicely, and I don't like them overstuffed because that way you don't get any air bubbles. So go ahead.
I love that she wants to help in the kitchen and wants to learn about gardening. It's so cute. It makes me so happy as a mom.
Perfect. All right, so we have some stuffed. I'm going to continue stuffing some more jars with cucumbers. Charles, did you want to stuff a jar? All right, so my son wants to help stuff a jar. So you're going to take the cucumber and just put it in here. Let's get your chair over this way, okay? Ready? There you go.
Hi.
I see you. Middle side. There you go. You trying to see, Tyler?
Can I put this one over there?
Tyler's like, I want to see.
Because it's like
Perfect.
we'll finish that one, and then we can move these over here so
Yeah.
we're doing it. I didn't have
Connor! You're fine. Oh, that's really high. Perfect.
Hey, can I have that one?
Perfect.
When I put my cucumbers in the jar, I don't like to make it so tight. I've done that before in the past and it has made air bubbles. I didn't have issues with it when it happened, but I like to try to avoid that as much as possible. So I like that to have like a little wiggle room as well in the jars. So sometimes I like to make extra jars just in case because I don't like packing my cucumbers so tightly in the jars. But you definitely want to leave enough room so when you go to add the liquid, you need to leave a 1/2 inch headspace. Here you can see how high I am packing the cucumbers in the jar. That way it leaves enough room still for adding the liquid in and leaving a 1/2 inch for the headspace. And when you do add the brine in the jar, you can move some cucumbers around if need be. And you can also move the brine around too, like to make sure that you have a 1/2 inch headspace as well.
And you definitely want to mix throughout to make sure that it's going to help to dissolve the mixture that we added to this. It's still coming to a boil, but definitely stir constantly. Smells really good. Once it does come to a boil, we're going to turn it off and then we're going to remove it from the heat. I want to let my brine cool down. I don't like putting my brine in too hot into my jars because I want my brine to cool down because I don't want soggy pickles. But it is now to a boil. I'm going to go ahead and give it a stir. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. All right, and I'm just going to scoot it over so it removes it from the heat. And we're going to let it cool down. In the meantime, I'm going to go get this one down for a nap, and then I will continue stuffing my jars. And thankfully I have some more jars in my dishwasher that I can go ahead and start adding more of the cucumbers too. So we'll be right back.
I got my youngest down for a nap and then I was able to finish stuffing the jars with cucumbers. I love that she's helping me count by how many jars we have total.
Okay, our brine is still cooling down. All the jars are completely filled with cucumbers. You can pack them if you want to, you just have to watch out for air bubbles. So I try not to pack mine so tight. We have a total of 38 jars of cucumbers filled up. So those pickles are gonna be real tasty. So now we are gonna go ahead and add our pickle crisp granules to it. And I do 1/2 teaspoon in each jar. So let's go ahead and get that going. I like adding it in before I have the liquids in the jar. You can do it either way, but I definitely like it before I add the liquid in. And again, this is 1/2 teaspoon.
When it's time to start figuring out how many cucumber plants I want to plant for the season, I always make sure that I have enough of this pickle crisp granules to can up with, because it's definitely very beneficial and helpful with making sure that your pickles are crunchy. They're not soggy. This is a huge thing I like to have on hand when it comes to canning.
My brine is still cooling down. My brine is still cooling down. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some water in my pot for the water bath method. And this is what I use on the bottom of my pot. It has little feet on it, so that way your jars do not sit directly on the bottom of the pot. And this is actually just a cake stand that I got to cool cakes. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up with water. I'm gonna go ahead and start heating up this water because for some reason my stove takes forever to heat up this amount of water. So we're gonna go ahead and get that started because I don't wanna be here forever waiting for it to be boiling, and I have jars ready. So let's go ahead and get that going. Here's what my brine looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and start adding it in. It's cooler than what it was before. I don't want it like completely cold. You can still see a little steam off of it, but it's been off the heat for a while now. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting some of them going because I will be here forever then with a total of 38 jars to can in the water bath method. So
when adding the brine in, you want to make sure that you leave a 1/2 inch headspace at the top, so that way it will properly seal. My goal is to try to make a year's worth of pickles to have in my pantry for my family. We go through 1 or 2 of these jars a week. My daughter and I, we make a lot of tuna wraps for lunch, especially during the summertime. And my husband loves tuna. And then sometimes we'll even make tuna and then just use some of these pickles as like scoops to scoop up the tuna. And it's really good. So we definitely go through these. And so I want to make a year's worth of supply of having pickles ready for my family. The kids also love these on burgers. We love to do burgers maybe like once a week. It's nice because my husband will go out and grill the burgers, and it gives me like a night off from in the kitchen. So it's so perfect having them on a burger. So I try to make also like a variety too of different flavors of pickles to have in the pantry. And sometimes my husband even likes when I make them like a spicy variety of pickles for him.
I did not have enough brine for the pickles, so I'm gonna go back to making the crunchy dill pickles that I made in a previous video because I know I have all the stuff for that. So I have 16 more jars that need some brine, so we're gonna go ahead and make that. 10 cups of water, and now I've added 7 cups of distilled white vinegar. Now we need to add 4 tablespoons of sugar. Now we need 4 tablespoons of pickling salt, and this is what I am using. And again, 4 tablespoons of that. We're going to add it right into the pot. Now I did not wash up this pot from the Kosher Dill Pickles brine that I had made. I figured it would not hurt it. It just would add a little bit more flavor to this type of pickle that I'm making. So we're going to go ahead and bring this to a boil. And we're going to get the other spices ready.
For the crunchy dill pickle recipe, each jar will get 1 clove of garlic. For this recipe for the crunchy dill pickles, you will need 10 teaspoons of dill seed. Sadly, I only had enough for 8 teaspoons of the dill seeds, but it will be okay. I'll make it work and it'll still taste good. Now you will need 8 teaspoons of mustard seeds. You need 64 black peppercorns. Give it a stir. Now you are going to want to equally distribute the mixture into the jars. I am starting off by using 1 teaspoon for each jar, and then I will just equal out the remainder between all the jars that I have left over for the crunchy dill pickles.
My brine is now to a nice boil, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And then I'll let it cool before I add it to the pickles.
Here's what my brine looks like. I have it turned off, letting it cool down, and as you can see, you can't see any of the mixture. It has dissolved.
Okay, my brine has finally cooled down. I'm bringing my water bath pot back to a boil. So I have it on high heat, and we're gonna go ahead and start putting the brine in the other ones that need the pickle brine.
For the Crunchy Dill Pickles, I am putting the brine in, and for these, I am also leaving a 1/2 inch head space so that way they properly seal. So for this recipe, I had doubled it, and this one I was able to get these jars filled, all 16 of them. And for the Kosher Dill Pickles, 2 of those packets worked perfect for 22 pint-sized jars. Next time I will make sure I have more Kosher Dill Pickles packets by Mrs. Wages, but the kids do love the Crunchy Dill Pickles a lot, so this is nice. I have more of those as well because they have already started going through some of the new ones. We wanted to try it out, so we definitely have gone through, I think, 4 jars already, and that's a lot faster than we normally go through pickles, but they really actually liked the Crunchy Dill Pickle recipe a lot. Last year they really liked the Kosher Dill Pickles, so that's why I wanted to make more of those. But, you know, our cucumbers are still growing on the vines, so we will see what else we will be making with them going forward. But both recipes are really phenomenal.
Okay, I have all my jars filled with their brine. I'm going to go ahead and heat up my measuring cup with water. I'm going to put it in for 3 minutes. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my lids in there.
All 38 lids would not fit completely under the water, so what I'm going to do is put them in there, and then when I go to pull some out, I'm going to reshuffle them around so the ones that were towards the top would go towards the bottom to still kind of heat up. But I'm going to let them sit in there for 3 minutes. While the lids are in the water, I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the rims of the jar, wipe them down, and then I'm going to dry them with the other end of the paper towel. So that way they are clean and there's nothing sticky on them from putting the brine in. When putting the lids on and then the rings on to tighten them, you want to just finger tighten them. You don't want to do a real hand grip tighten them. Just tighten them, not really strong. And as I'm doing that, I'm also shuffling out the top lids in the measuring cup to rotate them out so those ones get heated up, and taking towards the middle and then using those.
Okay, so I have some jars ready to go in. And we are going to go ahead and start with the Kosher Dill Pickle ones first. Alright, I'm going to let it come back to a boil, and then I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And then once the timer is up, we are going to remove the lid, turn it off, and let it sit for 5 minutes. Also, you just want to make sure that there are no air bubbles throughout your jar. So definitely look out for that. We need to turn off the stove to off, and we're going to remove the lid, and we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll remove the jars. Okay, now it's been 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and take these ones out, and we're going to set them on the towel, and you want to let them sit for 24 hours overnight, and you'll start hearing them. Hi guys. You'll start hearing them ping throughout, and that's a really good sign. Okay, now we need to turn this back on high to bring it back to a boil. I'm going to put the lid on to help speed up the process. And then once it's back to a boil, we'll put 5 more jars in. Okay, the water is now back to a boil. We're going to go ahead and put 5 more jars in. And I'm still doing the Kosher Dill Pickles.
I know I could squeeze 1 or 2 more jars in this, but I feel safer doing 5 because the water rises as you add more in as well, and it definitely splats out a lot even when it's has the lid on and it's boiling. I have kids that run in my kitchen, and I just feel safer with 5 jars in this at a time.
All right, we now have 5 jars in there, and we're going to let it go back to a boil, and then once it hits to a boil again, we're going to go ahead and put the timer on for 10 minutes. 10 minutes are up. We're going to turn this off, and we're going to remove the lid, and we're going to set the timer for 5 more minutes, and then we'll remove the jars. 5 minutes are up, and we're going to go ahead and remove the jars. Definitely make an area in your kitchen to where you can put them at and let them, you know, sit out for 24 hours. That way it can definitely properly seal and nothing is making it move. All right, we're just gonna keep repeating the process for the kosher dill pickles, and then when we get to the other ones, I'll show you how I will can those in the water. So I'm just gonna keep going and repeating the steps over and over until I have those done. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 12 more to put in the hot water, so we go. Here's how they look in the water bath method, the big pot. And you can see there is quite a bit of headspace of water above each jar. And I can fit 5 in mine. I probably could fit a little bit more, but I like giving it enough space. Okay, so now I am starting on the crunchy dill pickles and gonna put those in the water bath method. And my water is now to a boil, so I'm gonna go ahead and add 5 jars in. And this one's a little bit different than when we did the kosher dill pickles. And I will explain that as I go through step by step. So the first part is we're gonna put the jars in, and then we're gonna cover the lid, cover it with the lid and put it back up to a nice boil. And then we're gonna set the timer for 10 minutes.
For the kosher dill pickles, I follow the directions on the packet. I followed how it said to do it for the water bath canning method. And for the crunchy dill pickles, I did it like how I did it in the previous video I did for Let's Can Crunchy Dill Pickles.
All right, putting my lid on, waiting until it comes to a nice boil, put the timer on for 10 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Okay, my 10-minute timer is up. So what we're gonna do that's different from the one that we canned earlier is we're gonna leave the lid on, and we're just gonna turn the stove off. And we're gonna set the timer for 5 minutes. Once the timer's up, we are then gonna remove the jars from the pot. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, the timer just went off for the 5 minutes. We are gonna go ahead and remove the jars. Remember, tilt your lid to the side so any extra water drips off into the pot.
Now, I know everyone does canning differently when it comes to the water bath method, and either leaving the lid on or taking the lid off at the last 5 minutes portions, how these 2 different types, one is left with it on and one is left with it off at the 5 minutes. I'm not quite sure why it's different, but I went by the packet for Mrs. Wages and I removed the lid. And for the crunchy dill pickle, I left the lid on for the last 5 minutes. Now, I do not remember where I learned about leaving the lid to the pot on for the last 5 minutes for the crunchy dill pickle recipe, but moving forward, I definitely will be removing the lid to the pot and letting it sit for those 5 minutes. So I did some research, and when you turn your stove off and you're at the last 5 minute mark, you definitely want to remove the lid to the pot so that way your jars can cool down to a cooler temperature before removing them from the pot. Now, I have canned the crunchy dill pickles before in the past, and I have done it where I've left the lid on for the last 5 minutes and I have not had issues.
And I'm just gonna repeat this step for the other jars and then I will be done. But thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you guys learned a lot from how I can. Thank you. Bye.
Look at how beautiful all those jars of pickles look. Even though I know it was a long Saturday and it took quite a while to get all this done, but it definitely will be well worth it in the long run. It'll be rewarding to my family and myself, and everyone will thoroughly enjoy it.